So growing up was a challenge. I came from a family where I didn't know my biological father, and my mother had remarried, and the man that she brought into our family was a man who was very abusive, very physically, emotionally, and verbally abusive towards my brother and I. My brother and I are half African American and half Italian, and this man was Caucasian. And we didn't really know, I didn't really know this until a little bit older because he came into my life when I was 3 years old. But it's interesting when we come from a place of trauma and the beliefs that we start to put on ourselves, the ideas of who we are and not being accepted. And that really creates this ripple effect into how we show up in the world or how we don't show up in the world. And for me, because I was physically abused since the age of 3 and I wasn't accepted for my identity, I really tried to fit in various places where I knew I didn't belong. And even though I would tell my mother what was happening, she didn't seem to really know how to deal with it. She would completely disassociate from what was happening in the home. And so that left me feeling very alone. And when I got older into my teenage years, I became very rebellious because I wasn't accepted at home. So I went out and tried to be accepted into other places. And so when I was 14, I attempted suicide, and I was blamed by my mother for ruining her life when the ambulance came to pick me up. And a week after that, she actually put me in an all-girls home because they no longer wanted me in the environment. So she packed my stuff up and dropped me off and left me at an all-girls home. And so when that happened, I became bulimic. I developed an eating disorder because there was such a deep wound within me that I was trying to do everything to fill it. And as I look back, I think of, how much I longed to belong in a community and how that impacts our lives and just the coping mechanisms that we develop when we don't feel like we fit. And the self-sabotage that, the hurt that we cause ourselves and how we just isolate ourselves. A lot of the people that I work with, we feel so alone and just have a hard time connecting because it wasn't something that we learned. So when we're healing this wound of, whether it's abandonment or whether it's physical abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's emotional abuse, it looks differently for everyone. But I feel like having a community of people is so important and ensuring that we feel safe enough to be able to open up and share what is happening to us and being vulnerable and not being afraid. I've done a lot of healing work over my life, and I've really seen how, having those people is very important because a lot of times when people suffer with specific traumas, they tend to want to fit in. So they share all their stories and all the information with people. And those people aren't able to hold space for them or create a space of safety, and they don't know how to respond. And having a group of people or a friend, a close friend, or a close family member who we're able to share with is very important. But the healing journey and healing these generational traumas, it comes in layers. And I feel like every single season in our life, it is asking us to really shed and let go of and release these parts that are no longer in alignment. And I had to do that when I started to write a book, and I started to look at all of the parts of my family that I was carrying within myself. And because my mother had chosen somebody who was abusive, and what I found out later was my biological father was also abusive, and her parents were abusive, and their parents were abusive. So my mother was coming from a place of her own wounding and not being able to look at herself. She did not go on a healing journey herself. She very much decided to stay in this idea of a victim. And so I had to look at all those pieces to see how they still play a role in my life and how it has still negatively impact, especially my relationships. Not only my external relationships, but my relationship with myself. I hated myself for a very long time, and I was ashamed of how I looked, and I was nervous when I had to meet new people. I didn't know how they would perceive me, and at times I would put masks on just to play a role, but you soon realize quickly that those roles are not yours to play. It's up to us to truly show up authentically and not be afraid of who we are, and really take the time to go on that deep dive and heal those wounds and not be afraid to go on a healing journey. A lot of people are afraid of that part, the healing journey. They're afraid of losing things, losing people, changing, making new choices. It is uncomfortable. There is nothing comfortable about a healing journey. And I think, that's what stops a lot of people. They want to stay in their little bubble. And at times I feel pulled back into, well, it's just safe here. It's comfortable here. I know what it feels like. So I don't want to make a new decision. I don't want to choose something else because this feels good, even though it feels so sticky and yucky. I constantly have to battle my own thoughts and understand that I am deserving of, doing new things in my life and moving forward. I don't need to make the same mistakes that the people in my family made just because of their own trauma. My trauma is different. And I believe that, when I came to this planet, I chose my parents for my own experiences. And it has taught me so much about how do you heal and how do you forgive what has happened to you in the past and accept that and let go of that and love and accept yourself at the same time and reparent yourself, because you may not have received that parenting when you were a child. So there's so many different layers to a healing journey. And I want to just, share with people that there are different resources. There's so much support out there for us. And we just have to be willing and open and vulnerable to really share and really create those safe spaces. And it doesn't have to be scary. It can be, this very holistic, very slow process. It doesn't have to be so quick, like we have to heal quickly, because healing is something we do for our entire life. Peace is a part of the healing journey, staying in that state of allowing yourself to not be so bothered about your past or your present or your future, and just allowing yourself to just be and not feeling like you have to perform to fit in or to be somebody else just for the sake of other people. Because when we're building relationships, those people who really love us for who we truly are going to stay because they love us for who we truly are. That's a little bit about me.